basis. Everybody I'm holding.
13. Yep.
Okay. Sick. There's so many judges, I have no idea if I'm missing someone, but is it 13?
Yeah.
Okay. Solvency critique.
Are you starting top?
Yeah.
Voting rights 1, if this is only to our critique, it's net benefit to the affirmative. If we cannot withdraw the way that federal voting rights happen in the status quo, it makes it possible for people to formalize their own political, to make their own political system most disenfranchised people like the ability to access the way in which their government affects. Sorry, I've explained this is the most dividing line, which refers to new laws and capitalism. The alternative cannot solve this because they simply withdraw from the present system. It's prerequisite to the alternative. People cannot establish the basis of their own life voting rights. Their own formalized democracy. Evan talks about the disenfranchisement as a failure group. The disciplinary turns 1, the best studies improve that segregated schools are more likely to increase. The expulsion of people, minorities, to err towards the studies of the affirmative. We would lead to integrate schools that would trade off and solve the factor education. Their evidence is his logical argument is not that schools wouldn't kick everyone out of the home. There's a disparate impact saving people consider the schools will solve it. 3 is the factor segregation spilled over our Jones emphasis would more likely affect deployment in critical areas such as disciplinary arguments. So the reason why there would be the critical education one will to create evidence the best studies improves we spill over. It's the only time when it's actually integration in school studies is evidence based on current segregation arguments to a couple which below reference explain to even if you systematic teachers alter way or current age should view this 3 we control the you need to massive racism and assimilation that says compelling can alter the way education happens. The critique at the top there we do have offense on the alternative don't by this type of this argument later in the case that wagers probability of poverty is killing millions of people in the status quo hunger homelessness and sickness for millions. Ask yourself what the impact of capitalism does for millions of kids in schools and how we're drawing from capitalism to change the fact that millions of people are locked up in our prisons without ability to access our spillover arguments. The reason why we can change individual questions and err towards the specificity of their evidence in the context of integration. The card cites things such as the concept of urbanism and nationalism. What? Just as being in the context of segregation, it is general and fluffy and does not mention busing. Extends the reason why we spillover they cannot alter racism because it affects outside of that. Our Gilman evidence explains that even if capitalism is important, it cannot explain massive isolation and center wardy error. And the reason why the case is prior to massive amounts of thinking has happened in the status quo that has not changed our grand theoretical perspectives and not alter the way millions of people extend plan focus. I think this is pretty damn important because they cannot fiat an alternative unless it's a stable advocacy that trades off of affirmative governance and is necessary for education. Necessary for education and ability to have in-depth focus on the debate. If they get a utopian alternative, we get a utopian affirmative. We can bypass all the link. They say the state links arguments why into this on Mikulski evidence, but clearly kicks that card later. They say no commodity. There's some impact of this. Ask yourself what commodity means if you can't actually get some fucking healthcare. They say racial categories are urban areas is also linked to be negative because they still access these questions. This card is not specific in the context of integration, which kicks in with our plan focus argument. It says urban and nationalism is an intriguing concept created by capitalism. They say the leads to black framework 1 double turns clearly leads to the affirmative more. They use everything to capitalism, which is how they affirm. Actually, Evan talks about how the critical integrates areas such as African American, Latino students, and Asian Americans, which make the least less option. There's zero reason why the plan is best in this card. Besides, in the 1970s, our evidence explains to be more likely to lead to charismatic tools and other things that explains the 1970s are keys. Evidence why the struggle is critical to solve the solidarity among other relationships of education is critical. Also, the market of Juro evidence in the context of education, public schools, which is critical change that they're new intervention. And when it's seeing 20 evidence actually link more to the alternative because they talk about critical education and the university system where we can discuss things. What does that sound like? The negative alternative or Juro evidence is to talk to the public schools and how globalization leads to totalitarian thing, which is more in the context of integration. They read the wrong index of the wrong part of Juro's argument to send the reason why we would spill over there. Reasons why we have to claim existence is answered by Rody evidence, even if this is true and it's not explaining the concrete impacts that's happening in the steps quotes in that. We're critical to alter the racism until they say root cause about 4 more times and say, but we withdraw from capitalism. What does that mean in the context of schools and how this what says to our forward evidence is even if we can magically wish away racism, even if everyone stopping capitalism cannot change the fact that black people are systematically isolated in our country. Our Gibson graph evidence is basically considered to make 3 arguments. A, support it takes up the vast majority of the authors. They have said that to reduce capitalism to a monolithic structure. It's not simply that way. B, supporting straight jail for trade turns. They're all currently only idea capitalism grants its power because we rank the root cause of all impacts instead of focusing on the intricacies and intersections of where interrelations work. C, supporting to net benefit to the affirmative only can we by giving capitalism identity crisis by pointing out that both racism and capitalism is critical. It means it no longer establishes this monolithic force on all this except the reason why smashing it such critical arguments explain to net benefits or critique is part evidence is long. It just simply says it over and over. It says the word critique prior over and over again in the car without providing a necessary word just air towards our Gibson evidence extend the both is critical. The evidence of why disassociation after a memorandum of evidence type studies that even when we take class into account, the vast majority of African Americans living in an isolated community, even if their middle class is more specific, which is better, more specific than the general, but capitalism root cause racism. Also, this turns our racial categories arguments and subsequently categories versus non-categorical simple way people are segregated to the permutation three net benefits. Ace the point kids are starving in the sets for healthcare evidence means even if we're talking from capitalism because the towards systematic nature of the best. Yeah, piece the point coalitions are critical on the link and also the way that people logically understand racism and link to a broader universalized distinct. The point is the structures of inequality that happen beyond class impacts extend. They say it's mutually exclusive nonsense and nonsense. The alternative can overcome their links like the binary argument of doing, and then we shall get that back to the alternative clear links to this colorblind argument versus that benefit of the argument or simulation argument doesn't so many furnace because we result in more broader argument. This is not unique in the status quo. This is in the case of the Powell Evans. Their incentive to risk only a link argument is nonsense. They should not criminalize the biggest argument. We shouldn't also prioritize capitalism or evidence when there's multiple interests that's happening in the status quo. It's in the alternative to write up and control. They say it's generic and they want to say this links to their state argument. If the state is necessarily capital, they withdraw from our close evidence increase incentive for private capital to increase control over African Americans only. The affirmative change to our particular critical change, they say brought our three arguments. One is the only reason why the people are against include racism because they're majority white people. Evidence cites or authors explains they are fearful of a color-led revolution and simply want to endorse past because it's critical to the questions of how we can access the other arguments. 3, I find the MTV fucking fad argument a little bit pathetic. Are you saying the integration of children is like an MTV show when millions are dying?
5:36.